Stop, don't spend these old Jefferson nickels just yet. 3 seemingly ordinary coins could have a very different story, especially if you find the right date, mint mark, exceptional condition, or genuine mint error. Some rare examples have attracted thousands of dollars in the collector market. Today, we're examining the clues, the history, the errors, and the real 2026 auction evidence that could separate an ordinary 5-cent coin from a truly valuable numismatic treasure. Check your coins before you spend them. Let's play. Coin number 1. What if a 5-cent coin sitting inside an old jar, collection, drawer, or coin box could turn out to be far more interesting than its face value suggests? Today, we are taking a close look at the 1981 Jefferson Nickle with the D mint mark, a coin that many people overlook because millions of Jefferson nickels were produced. But in the world of numismatics, not every coin from the same year tells the same story. The 1981 D Jefferson Nickle was struck at the Denver Mint, and the small letter D underneath the date identifies its mint of origin. At first glance, this may look like an ordinary 5-cent coin. However, collectors know that date, mint mark, condition, strike quality, varieties, and genuine mint errors can make a major difference. So before you spend that old nickel, stay with us because we are going through its history, design, condition grades, possible errors, auction market considerations, and what a 1981 D Jefferson Nickle may realistically be worth in 2026. The Jefferson Nickle has a fascinating history that goes back to 1938. The coin was designed to honor Thomas Jefferson, the 3rd President of the United States and one of the key figures in early American history. The obverse features a portrait of Jefferson, while the reverse traditionally presents an image of Monticello, Jefferson's historic Virginia home. This combination of portrait and architecture has made the Jefferson Nickle one of the most recognizable American coins. By 1981, the nickel had already been part of American commerce for decades. The 1981 D issue was produced at the Denver Mint for circulation, meaning it was never originally intended to be a rare collector coin. And that is an important point. A coin can be old without being rare. A coin can be collectible without being extremely valuable. And occasionally, an ordinary circulation coin can become valuable because of an unusual error, exceptional preservation, or a particularly scarce condition. That distinction is extremely important when examining a 1981 D nickel. Take your coin and look carefully at the date. You should see 1981 on the obverse, then look below the date for the mint mark. If you see a small d, your nickel was struck at Denver. The reverse shows Monticello, with the familiar inscriptions EPLUBUSUNUM, MONTICLLO, 5 cents, and United States of America. Now comes the interesting part. 2 coins can both say 1981D and still have dramatically different collector appeal. One could be heavily circulated, scratched, dull, and worn. Another might have unusually sharp details, attractive surfaces, and very little evidence of circulation. That difference is where coin grading becomes extremely important. If your 1981 D nickel looks almost completely original and shows no obvious signs of circulation, collectors may describe it as an uncirculated coin. Professional grading companies use numerical grades to describe condition. The term MS, meaning mint state, is used for coins that have not circulated. For example, an MS-60 coin can be uncirculated but still have noticeable marks or other imperfections. Higher grades such as MS-65, MS-66, and above represent increasingly demanding standards. But simply saying, "My coin is MS," does not automatically make it rare. This is one of the biggest mistakes new collectors make. A coin must actually meet the requirements of the grade, and high-grade examples need to be compared with other surviving examples. Population reports, auction results, certified examples, and the exact variety all matter. A spectacular-looking 1981 D nickel may attract attention, but the market determines its value through actual collector demand. The D mint mark is important because it tells us that the coin came from Denver. However, the presence of a D does not by itself make the coin rare. This is worth repeating because internet videos and social media posts sometimes create confusion. A normal 1981 D nickel should not automatically be described as a rare coin simply because it carries a D. Instead, collectors should ask a different question. What makes this particular example different from the millions of other nickels from the same era? The answer could be exceptional grade, a recognized variety, a genuine mint era, unusual preservation, or some combination of these factors. Now let's talk about errors. A genuine mint era can sometimes dramatically increase collector interest, but there is a major difference between a mint-made error and damage that happened after the coin left the mint. For example, a coin that has been scratched, squeezed, drilled, chemically altered, or damaged by machinery is not automatically a valuable mint error. Collectors look for evidence that the unusual feature was created during the manufacturing process. Possible error categories across modern U.S. coinage include things such as off-center strikes, wrong planchets, major die problems, doubled features, and other recognized mint production mistakes. However, every unusual mark should not be called an error. If you believe your 1981 D nickel has an unusual feature, compare it with reputable numismatic references, and for potentially significant pieces, consider professional authentication. That is especially important when a coin is being advertised online for hundreds or thousands of dollars. So how much is a 1981 D Jefferson Nickle worth in 2026? There is no single answer. A typical circulated 1981 D nickel may be worth little more than its face value, depending on condition and the current market. An attractive uncirculated example can command more interest from collectors, while exceptionally high-grade certified coins can bring stronger prices. And then there is the completely different category, a rare, authenticated error or variety. That is where prices can become much more interesting. But we need to be careful with the word valuable. A viral listing showing a coin priced at $5,000 does not mean someone actually paid $5,000 for it. There is a huge difference between an asking price and a confirmed auction sale. For serious valuation, collectors should look for completed sales, reputable auction records, professional grading information, and comparable examples. The best evidence is what buyers actually paid for a similar coin. The coin market in 2026 continues to reward quality and rarity. But the market is selective. Collectors do not simply buy a coin because it is old. They look for condition, rarity, eye appeal, provenance, certified grade, varieties, and documented auction history. A normal circulated 1981 D nickel and an exceptionally preserved certified example should therefore never be treated as the same coin. Likewise, a genuine major mint error should be evaluated separately from a normal coin with scratches or environmental damage. If a supposedly rare 1981 D nickel appears in an auction, examine the description carefully. Is the coin professionally graded? Is the error attributed? Is there a certification number? Are there photographs showing the relevant feature? And most importantly, are there actual previous sales of comparable examples? Those questions can protect collectors from unrealistic valuations. Here is something every collector should remember. Not every 1981 D nickel has the same story. One coin might have spent decades in circulation and developed considerable wear. Another might have been placed into a collection shortly after it was produced. A third could have survived with unusually clean surfaces. And another could contain a legitimate mint error that makes it dramatically more interesting. That is why you should never judge every coin from a particular year by the same value. The date is only the beginning of the investigation. The mint mark is another clue. Condition gives us another clue. The strike, surfaces, varieties, and possible errors give us even more. And finally, the market tells us what collectors are actually willing to pay. If you have a 1981 Jefferson Nickle, don't immediately clean it. Cleaning can damage the original surface and may reduce collector appeal. Instead, handle the coin carefully by its edges and examine it under good lighting. Check the date. Check the D mint mark. Look closely at Jefferson's portrait. Then examine Monticello on the reverse. Look for unusual doubling, an obviously off-center strike, missing design elements, unusual metal characteristics, or other features that appear to have originated during mint production. Take clear photographs, but remember that photographs alone cannot always determine authenticity or grade. If the coin appears genuinely exceptional, professional evaluation may be worthwhile. And now for the most important lesson of today's video. Don't assume that every 1981 Jefferson Nickle is a jackpot. At the same time, don't automatically throw an old nickel into the spend pile without looking at it. Most examples will be ordinary. Some will be better preserved. A small number may have unusual varieties or errors. And exceptionally rare, authenticated examples can attract serious attention in the numismatic market. That is the fascinating part of coin collecting. The possibility is not in the date alone. It is in the individual coin. So the next time you see a 1981 Jefferson Nickle, remember that tiny 5-cent piece carries a story from the Denver Mint, the history of the Jefferson Nickle series, and decades of American commerce. The D mint mark tells us where it was made. The condition tells us how well it survived. The surfaces and strike tell us more about its quality. And a genuine, documented error or scarce variety could completely change its collector interest. If you're searching through an old collection in 2026, take a second look before spending those Jefferson Nickles. Because while most 1981 nickels are not extremely rare, the right combination of condition, rarity, and authentication is what creates real numismatic value. And remember, an auction listing is not the same thing as a confirmed sale. Always research comparable completed sales before believing a dramatic price claim. If you enjoyed this coin history investigation, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with another collector. There may be another interesting Jefferson Nickle waiting in an old collection, and sometimes the smallest clues are the ones that tell the biggest story. Thanks for watching and happy coin hunting. And stay tuned for next coin. Coin number 2. What if an old, dark-looking 5-cent coin from 1983 could have a story that collectors would actually want to investigate? Today, we are looking at the 1983 Jefferson Nickle with the P mint mark, a coin that can easily be overlooked because of its worn, dirty, black, or brown appearance. But here's the important question. Is a dark 1983 P nickel actually rare, or is it simply a coin that has experienced decades of circulation and environmental exposure? In today's video, we're going deep into the 1983 P Jefferson Nickle, including its history, the meaning of the P mint mark, condition and MS grades, possible mint errors, auction market evidence, and what collectors should realistically consider when evaluating one in 2026. And there is one rule to remember from the beginning. A coin being advertised online for a huge amount of money does not prove that it is worth that amount. Real value comes from rarity, condition, authentication, and documented sales. The Jefferson Nickle has been part of American coinage since 1938. Its design honors Thomas Jefferson, whose portrait appears on the obverse. The reverse features Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, making this 5-cent coin not only a piece of currency, but also a small representation of American history. The 1983 issue belongs to the later period of the classic Jefferson nickel design. If your coin carries a small p beneath the date, it indicates that the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. That tiny letter can immediately tell collectors something important about the coin's origin. But the P mint mark alone does not make every 1983 P nickel rare. Instead, collectors examine the complete coin. They consider its condition, surfaces, strike, varieties, errors, and whether comparable examples have actually sold in the marketplace. Now let's discuss the unusual appearance described in today's coin. You may have a 1983 P nickel that looks black, dark brown, gray, or heavily dirty. At first glance, that appearance might make the coin seem unusual. However, dark coloration is not automatically evidence of rarity. A coin can change appearance because of age, storage conditions, contact with other materials, environmental exposure, or other forms of surface alteration. In some cases, what looks like an interesting color can simply be damage or environmental tunning. That means collectors should be very careful about calling a dark coin an error. A genuine mint error happens during the manufacturing process. Color acquired later is generally a completely different issue. If you have a dark 1983 P Jefferson nickel, one of the worst things you can do is aggressively clean it in an attempt to make it look new. Scrubbing, polishing, chemical cleaning, or abrasive treatment can permanently change the coin's surface. Collectors generally prefer original surfaces. A coin that looks old and naturally preserved may be more interesting than a coin that has been artificially polished. So if you discover a potentially valuable nickel, leave the surface alone. Handle it carefully by the edges and examine it under good lighting. The goal is to discover what the coin really is, not to make it look artificially shiny. There is another important distinction. A dirty-looking coin is not necessarily rare. A damaged coin is not necessarily rare either. And a toned coin is not automatically valuable. Collectors need to determine whether the unusual appearance existed because of the coin's original manufacturing, natural agging, storage environment, or later damage. For example, a dark patch on one part of the coin could simply be environmental discoloration. A strange-looking mark could have been created after the coin entered circulation. And a shiny area could indicate cleaning rather than exceptional preservation. That is why photographs can be helpful, but professional examination is sometimes necessary for serious claims. Now let's talk about condition. A circulated 1983 P nickel may show wear on Jefferson's portrait, the lettering, and the Monticello design. The longer a coin remains in circulation, the more opportunities it has to collect scratches, contact marks, dirt, and surface wear. But a coin that was saved soon after leaving the mint can tell a very different story. Collectors use numerical grading systems to describe condition. The abbreviation MS means mint state, generally referring to an uncirculated coin. An MS-60 example can still have noticeable marks. Higher grades require increasingly strong preservation and overall quality. This is why you should never see the letters MS in an online advertisement and automatically assume the coin is worth a fortune. The actual grade matters. The certification matters. The coin's population at that grade matters. And the prices realized by comparable coins matter. Imagine two 1983 P nickels sitting side by side. The first has been heavily circulated. Its surfaces show wear, contact marks, and dark environmental discoloration. The second has sharp details, strong luster, minimal marks, and an appearance consistent with an uncirculated coin. They share the same date and mint mark. Yet collectors could view them very differently. This is one of the central lessons of numismatics. Coins with the same date are not necessarily equal in value. The individual condition of each specimen matters. And when a coin reaches an unusually high certified grade, competition among collectors can sometimes become much stronger. Now we reach one of the most exciting parts of the search: errors. A genuine mint error can potentially make a normal-looking nickel much more interesting. Collectors may investigate features such as significant off-center strikes, wrong planchets, major die-related abnormalities, or recognized doubled features. But there is a major warning here. Not every strange-looking coin is an error. A scratch is not automatically a double die. A dent is not automatically an off-center strike. A discolored surface is not automatically a mint mistake. And damage caused by machinery after the coin left the mint does not become a valuable error simply because it looks unusual. For a potentially significant error, authentication is extremely important. So what about the big dollar values that appear in coin videos and online listings? This is where research becomes essential. A seller might list a 1983 nickel for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. But an asking price is not the same thing as an auction result. For a realistic valuation, collectors should focus on documented completed sales. Look for the same date. Look for the same mint mark. Look for a similar grade. Look for the same variety or error. And compare coins certified by reputable grading services whenever possible. The market can pay substantially more for an exceptional specimen than for a normal circulated coin. But that does not mean every 1983 nickel has a high value. Sometimes you'll see a claim saying a particular coin was sold only once for an extraordinary amount. That can certainly sound impressive. But one isolated sale needs context. Was the coin professionally certified? Was it a recognized error? What was its exact grade? Was the sale conducted by a reputable auction company? Were there multiple bidders? Was the final price actually realized, or was it simply a seller's asking price? Without those details, a dramatic number can be misleading. The safest approach is to treat one unusual sale as evidence about that specific coin, not proof that every coin of the same date is worth the same amount. The early 1980s were an interesting period for American coin collectors. Jefferson nickels continued to circulate widely, which means many examples experienced substantial wear. At the same time, collectors saved certain coins in better condition. That creates different populations of surviving specimens. Some coins became heavily circulated. Others spent decades protected inside collections. And some may have unusual characteristics that make them worth closer examination. Your individual 1983 nickel, therefore, has its own history. It may have been carried in someone's pocket. It could have sat inside a cash register. It might have been placed in a collection. Or it may have spent decades in an environment that changed its appearance. The coin itself cannot tell us everything, but its surfaces can provide clues. Start with the date. Confirm that it says 1983. Next, check beneath the date for the mint mark. Then examine Jefferson's portrait for unusual doubling or other characteristics. Turn the coin over and carefully inspect Monticello. Look at the lettering. Look at the edges of the design. Check whether anything appears dramatically misaligned or unusual. Then examine the color. If the coin is black or brown, don't immediately assume the color is a mint error. Instead, consider whether the coloration looks like natural tunning, environmental exposure, or damage. Finally, compare the coin with reliable references and documented examples. This is what makes coin collecting so fascinating. You can take 10 1983p nickels and discover 10 different histories. One may be heavily worn. Another may have better details. A third may have been stored for decades. A fourth may show environmental discoloration. Another may have an unusual strike. And perhaps one example could turn out to deserve professional examination because of a legitimate mint-made feature. The date may be identical. The mint mark may be identical. The denomination may be identical. But the individual coins can be completely different. That's why experienced collectors don't stop at the date. They investigate the coin itself. So let's summarize the valuation question. A typical circulated 1983p Jefferson nickel is generally not an automatic high-dollar rarity. Its value can be modest, particularly when it has ordinary wear and environmental damage. An attractive, uncirculated example can be more desirable. A high-grade certified specimen can command substantially more attention. And a properly authenticated rare error or scarce variety can potentially enter a completely different market category. But the exact value depends on the individual specimen and current collector demand. There is no responsible way to guarantee a huge dollar amount simply from the date and P mint mark. If someone tells you that every 1983p nickel is worth thousands of dollars, be skeptical. If someone tells you that no 1983p nickel can ever be valuable, that is also too simplistic. The truth is in the details. Before you spend your next old Jefferson nickel, look closely. Before you sell one because it looks strange, investigate it. Before you believe a viral valuation, check the actual auction evidence. And before you clean a potentially collectible coin, stop and research first. The 1983p Jefferson nickel may not be a rare jackpot in ordinary circulated condition, but it remains an interesting piece of American coinage. Its Monticello design connects it to Jefferson's history. Its P mint mark connects it to Philadelphia. Its condition tells the story of how it survived. And any genuine mint error or exceptional certified grade could change its place in the collector market. The biggest lesson is simple. Don't value the date alone, value the individual coin. In 2026, smart collectors look beyond sensational headlines and focus on authentication, condition, rarity, and real market evidence. So check those old nickels carefully. You may discover nothing more than 5 cents. Or you may discover a coin with a story worth investigating. Coin number 3. Could an ordinary-looking 1987D Jefferson nickel be worth more than its 5-cent face value? Maybe, but before you believe dramatic online price claims, there is an important story behind this coin. Today, we're examining the 1987 Jefferson nickel from the Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark. We'll look at its history, circulation condition, mint state examples, possible errors and varieties, and what the 2026 numismatic market can realistically tell us about its value. And here's the key: not every 1987D nickel is rare. In fact, most circulated examples are ordinary, but individual coins can have very different stories depending on how they survived. So if you have one in an old coin jar, collection, or inherited group of change, don't judge it by the date alone. The Jefferson nickel has been part of American coinage since 1938, when the United States introduced the series honoring Thomas Jefferson. The design is instantly recognizable. Jefferson appears on the obverse, while the reverse features Monticello, his historic home in Virginia. By 1987, this familiar 5-cent coin had already been circulating for nearly half a century. The Denver Mint produced Jefferson nickels bearing the D Mint mark, while other U.S. mint facilities produced coins identified by their own mint markings, or, depending on the year, no mint mark. That little letter is useful information for collectors because it tells us where the coin originated. But here's where beginners sometimes get confused. A D Mint mark does not automatically mean a coin is rare. The real question is what makes one individual 1987 D nickel different from another. Imagine two 1987 D Jefferson nickels sitting beside each other. The first has been used for years. Its high points are worn, the surfaces contain marks from circulation, and the original shine has largely disappeared. The second coin may have spent most of its life protected inside a collection. Both coins have the same date. Both have the D Mint mark. Both have a 5-cent denomination. Yet collectors may value them very differently. This is why condition is one of the most important parts of coin collecting. A heavily circulated example will generally have much less collector premium than an exceptionally preserved specimen. For a normal circulated 1987 D nickel, the market usually isn't treating it as a major rarity simply because it is several decades old. That's why the phrase rare coin should be used carefully. Now let's move to the category that often attracts the most attention online: mint state or MS coins. An MS coin is an uncirculated coin that retains its original mint state characteristics. But there is a huge difference between a coin that merely looks shiny and a coin that actually deserves a high professional grade. Grading considers factors such as marks, contact damage, luster, strike quality, and overall preservation. An MS-60 coin and an MS-67 coin are both technically mint state, but they can occupy very different positions in the collector market. This is particularly important for modern coins. A large number of coins may have survived in uncirculated condition, but only a smaller number may survive with the exceptional quality required for the highest grades. So if your 1987 D nickel looks unusually clean, that can be interesting. But don't automatically assign it a high grade from appearance alone. Professional certification is the stronger evidence. Now we're getting to the part that can make coin hunting exciting. A genuine mint error can make a coin much more desirable. But there is an important warning. Not every strange-looking nickel is an error. Coins can become scratched, bent, stained, discolored, polished, chemically altered, or damaged by machines after leaving the mint. Those problems generally don't create the kind of premium associated with a genuine mint production error. A legitimate error occurs during the manufacturing process. Collectors may encounter categories such as off-center strikes, wrong planchets, major die-related errors, and other recognized production mistakes. The size and significance of the error matter. A dramatic, authenticated error can be far more collectible than a minor imperfection. That means you should never rely on a photograph from a random social media post to decide that your nickel is worth thousands of dollars. Turn the coin over. There is Monticello. This building is more than just decoration. It connects the coin directly to Thomas Jefferson's historical legacy. The reverse includes the familiar inscriptions associated with the Jefferson nickel design. When examining an older coin, collectors often compare the details against normal examples. Is the lettering shaped normally? Does the building appear correctly struck? Are there unusual features around the lettering? Could what looks like doubling simply be machine doubling, or another common phenomenon? These are the kinds of questions that separate careful numismatic research from internet speculation. A coin doesn't become valuable simply because something looks unusual under a magnifying glass. The feature needs to be understood and, when necessary, authenticated. So let's talk about the question everyone wants answered. How much is a 1987 Jefferson Nickle worth in 2026? The honest answer is that there isn't one universal price. A typical circulated 1987 nickel generally remains a modest value coin. An attractive uncirculated specimen may be worth more to a collector. A very high-grade certified example can potentially command a stronger premium. And a genuinely rare, authenticated error can fall into a completely different market category. This is why you should be skeptical when you see a video claiming every 1987 nickel is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. A seller can list a coin for any price. That does not prove anyone will pay that amount. An actual completed auction sale is much stronger evidence. Here's an important lesson for anyone building a collection. Two coins with the same date and mint mark don't necessarily have the same market value. One may have ordinary circulation wear. Another may have superior surfaces. One may have been cleaned. Another may retain attractive original characteristics. One may have a minor defect. Another may qualify for an exceptional certified grade. And one could potentially contain a legitimate mint error. This is why experienced collectors don't simply ask, "What is a 1987 nickel worth?" They ask, "What is this specific 1987 nickel worth, in this specific condition, with this specific variety or error?" That question is much more useful. If you're researching a potentially valuable nickel, auction history is one of your best tools. Look for completed sales of coins that closely match yours. The date should match. The mint mark should match. The grade should be comparable. And if you're claiming an error, the error should be the same or closely comparable. A normal 1987 nickel should not be compared with an entirely different rare error. Likewise, an uncertified circulated coin should not automatically be valued like an extremely high-grade certified specimen. This is where careful research becomes essential. The numismatic market rewards evidence. You may see listings describing a coin as MS65, MS66, or another mint state grade. But remember that the grade belongs to the individual coin, not to every coin of that date. If one exceptional 1987 nickel sold for a premium in a particular grade, that does not mean every 1987 nickel has that value. This is especially important when only a small number of highly graded examples have appeared at auction. A single spectacular sale can be interesting, but it should not automatically become the universal price guide. Collectors should look at certification information, population data where available, and multiple comparable transactions whenever possible. The goal is to discover the market value of the actual coin, not simply repeat the highest number found online. If you have one of these coins, start with the basics. First, confirm the date, 1987. Next, locate the mint mark. Then examine both sides under good lighting. Look at the portrait of Jefferson. Check the lettering. Study Monticello. Look for signs of circulation. Then inspect the surfaces for unusual characteristics. If something appears to be doubled, off-center, unusually struck, or otherwise different, compare it with reputable references before reaching a conclusion. And whatever you do, don't clean the coin simply because you think it might be valuable. Cleaning can permanently alter the surface and may hurt collector appeal. One of the biggest mistakes is assuming that age equals rarity. A coin from 1987 is now decades old, but age alone does not make it a rare coin. Millions of coins can survive from a particular year. Rarity depends on supply, survival, condition, varieties, eras, and collector demand. The second major mistake is believing every online price. An advertisement showing $10,000 is not proof of a $10,000 coin. A confirmed sale is much more meaningful. And the third mistake is ignoring condition. A circulated coin and a pristine certified coin can have very different collector appeal. Think of every coin as having its own history. One 1987 D nickel could have traveled through thousands of transactions. Another might have been saved by a child and forgotten in a box. Another could have been placed into a collection shortly after leaving the mint. Another might have survived in an unusually attractive state of preservation. And a very small number of coins may have unusual mint-produced characteristics worth investigating. That's why coin collecting is so interesting. The date gives you the starting point. The condition gives you another chapter. The mint mark adds another clue. The variety or era, if genuine, can add another. And the auction record tells you how the collecting market responded. So, is your 1987 D. Jefferson Nickle worth a fortune? For most circulated examples, the answer is no. But that doesn't make the coin worthless as a piece of history. A high-quality, uncirculated specimen may attract collectors. An exceptionally graded example can be more interesting. And a legitimate, authenticated mint era or scarce variety could potentially command a significant premium. The important thing is to identify what you actually have before assigning a price. Don't confuse a high asking price with a completed sale. Don't confuse damage with a mint error. And don't assume one exceptional auction result applies to every coin. The 1987 D. Jefferson Nickle may have started life as a simple 5-cent piece, but decades later, it can still give collectors something exciting to investigate. The D mint mark tells us it came from Denver. The condition tells us how well it survived. The design connects us to Jefferson and Monticello. The possibility of a genuine error gives collectors another reason to examine the coin closely. And the 2026 market reminds us that real value comes from rarity, condition, authentication, and actual collector demand. So the next time a 1987 D. Jefferson Nickle appears in your change, don't immediately assume it is a fortune, and don't ignore it either. Because every coin has a different story, and sometimes the most interesting discovery begins with a coin that looks completely ordinary. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the 1987 D. Jefferson Nickle, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with another coin collector. Keep checking those nickels, keep learning the history behind them, and most importantly, always verify the evidence before believing a spectacular price claim. Thanks for watching, and happy coin hunting!